Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton announced that after 4 consecutive weeks without any positive cases, one city employee had tested positive for COVID-19 last week. At the June 18th coronavirus press conference, he talked about how Indiana is behind the national average of vaccinated residents.
Indiana continues to be, we're one of 14 states in the country that are at least 10 percentage points behind the national average in terms of how many of our residents have been vaccinated, 55 versus 65% for the country. And there are about 16 states that are actually over 70%. So we're still at some risk. I know you all know too about things like the variants, and the Delta variant. It's caused England to back off its reopening, and we see that rising in the United States. So again, it's just being humble about where we are, what we're doing, and it just reemphasizes how important getting vaccinated is. So,
Monroe County Commissioner Penny Githens talked about the eviction moratorium. She pointed out that as of the June 18th meeting, the moratorium ends at the end of June, and that Monroe County has resources for residents who need more help.
That the eviction moratorium ends at the end of June, and that if they need help with whether it's rent or utilities or mortgage or even certain other critical expenses, that they should seek help through their township trustee. Every single resident of Monroe County lives in a township, and they can get help. We've made additional funds available, but get there before it becomes too much of a problem. If you're facing eviction, I suggest that you contact the Housing and Eviction Prevention Project. I'll put contact information for that into the chat for everybody.
The next coronavirus press conference will be on June 25th. The Richland Bean Blossom School Board discussed leadership training sessions at its June 21st meeting. Superintendent Dr. Jerry Sanders presented an agreement with Solution Tree for 2 days of training in August. He explained that this partnership differs from past attempts to create a professional learning community by focusing on staff culture.
Earlier initiatives really didn't get to that point where it became part of our culture. And so we want to embed professional learning communities into everything that we do at RBB, so that as people come and go, PLCs will continue, that it's just part of who we are. And so we want to go back and do this in a way that we're building the leadership from the board, from the superintendent's office, having a strong representatives in our buildings, and being able to, as we move forward, use it to tie everything together.
Dr. Sanders cited the Ready Schools initiative as another big change. He said establishing a PLC would help tie everything together.
Is all of our other initiatives with Ready Schools and project-based learning, that we need to find a way to tie that together for everybody, and this is one way that we're going to accomplish that.
Board member Larry DeMoss voiced concerns with the partnership. He said that as a teacher who had been through such partnerships, he was worried it would become another thing on teachers' plates.
Having been through the process at a certain level, and having been, I think, fairly intricately involved in it,
right.
I think you hit some of the important things, that it's not just one more thing, that it does actually help to organize and coordinate the efforts and the various initiatives that we have. And I'm also certainly willing to hear what our trainer and what they have to say, and what we're going to be doing. And I want to be supportive, but I don't want to see it turn into yet another initiative and more on the teachers' plates, because I know how it has seemed in the past.
Board members voted to approve the partnership unanimously. Director of Public Works Adam Wason talked about the city's recommendation to reopen the road through Lower Cascades Park at the June 22nd Bloomington Board of Public Works meeting. He revealed that accessibility and safety issues played a large part in the department's decision.
There was also obviously numerous concerns cited with traffic from the local neighborhoods during large IU events, sporting events in particular. There were some concerns about the mixed use issues of the road. We fielded some complaints from even those that were using it as pedestrians, with some more of the competitive cyclists going through at speeds that were felt to be unsafe by those other users. There was general safety and access for public safety departments and parks and recreation crews.
Wason added that the reopening would include road maintenance and upgrades. He focused on changes aimed at making the road safer for pedestrians and cyclists.
So we'll look to install traffic calming devices according to engineering and MUTCD standards for a parkway. Install additional speed signage to keep speeds low, in addition to those traffic calming devices. Even considering some more of like the signboard, here's how fast you're going type of signage to really get folks to understand we want to reduce speeds throughout this entire parkway.
City Council member Matt Flaherty expressed disappointment over the decision. He said the closure was an opportunity to create another safe route for cyclists and pedestrians around town, including a bike route to Bloomington High School North.
I think safe routes is really important. The council passed a resolution in 2019 in which high school students asked for safe biking routes to school, high school in particular, and the city council passed that resolution. And I don't think there's a safe biking route to Bloomington High School North right now for a lot of attendees.
The next Board of Public Works meeting is on July 6th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the causes to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. The Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners voted on whether to reopen Old State Road 37 in Lower Cascades Parks. At the June 22nd meeting, Parks and Recreation Director Paula McDevitt expanded further on the city's decision to reopen the road through Lower Cascades. She said the city has received hundreds of responses to surveys which favored reopening the road to vehicle traffic.
But then when we had the experience survey that ran the last 15 months, we had 458 respondents, and 52% indicated that they definitely wanted to keep the road as a multi-use trail. So again, we had a lot of feedback. The impact survey, we had 394 respondents and had a question on when asked to rank on a scale of 1 to 7, support of different options. The 360 respondents indicated that reopening both lanes to vehicle got a score of 5.6 average rating, while the permanent closing of the road was a 2.2 and having only one lane open to vehicles was a 2.6.
Commissioner Israel Herrera asked about damages caused by flash flooding. McDevitt confirmed that parts of the road had been damaged and would be repaired. Resident Greg Alexander opposed reopening the road to vehicle traffic. He cited Bloomington's previous plans for Lower Cascades as a factor in his opposition.
A bike and ped connection through the park has been in the city's plan since the 2008 Greenways Plan. The 2011 Journey to Platinum Plan called for it explicitly to connect Miller Showers Park to North High School and Griffey Lake. In 2018, City Council approved $2 million of bond money to complete the connection to the Miller Showers Park. The Griffey Lake connection has been completed, but the other two have not. And Parks has already spent almost all of the bond money without providing the connection. We need to provide that connection. Parks has made the commitment to City Council to provide that connection. If we don't have that connection, how much longer are we going to be waiting for the very first safe bike or ped connection north of the bypass?
The park commissioners voted to approve the recommendation 3-0. The recommendation will return to the Board of Public Works at a future meeting. The MCCSC School Board discussed meal prices for the 2021 to 2022 school year. At the June 22nd meeting, Director of Business Operations John Kenny presented a plan that would raise school meal prices alongside federal guidelines for the upcoming school year. He added that waivers for free meals introduced during the pandemic would continue through 2022.
Pandemic waivers for school nutrition programs are extended to June 30, 2022. The school nutrition program waivers include school breakfast, school lunch, and after-school snacks for enrolled students only. The administration recommends continuation of the USDA option to serve meals for free to all students under the Seamless Summer Option, or SSO, until June 30th, 2022.
Board members voted to approve meal prices 7-0. After the board voted to approve contracts, board member Jacinda Townsend Guides commented on the lack of contracts made with minority-owned companies.
I've been on the board for about a year now, and I have yet to see us make a contract with any minority-owned company, and I would love to see us going forward consider that. We need to start doing that.
The next regularly scheduled school board meeting is July 27th. The Monroe County Board of Commissioners discussed the June 19th emergency declaration at its June 23rd meeting. Board President Julie Thomas declared a state of emergency in response to extreme flooding in Monroe County the weekend of June 18th. County Attorney Jeff Cockrell said that emergency declarations that are extended beyond 7 days need to be approved by the rest of the board. He clarified that emergency status signals to state government that Monroe County needs emergency funds.
The basic function of declaring the emergency is to alert the state and the federal government that, hey, we had a big storm and we have some problems and we would like to get some funding if it's available. So that's the primary purpose to this. It doesn't involve the road closures or anything like that. That's more on a highway department level as to whether it's safe to drive on or not.
Commissioner Lee Jones asked about whether Monroe County met the damage threshold necessary to receive emergency funding. Deputy Director of Emergency Management Kate Petroline wasn't sure what that number is, but said that the county is still accepting flood damage reports from residents.
We have actually been in contact with the state talking about what that number is, and we have not gotten a definite number. So right now, as Allison said before, please report everything that you have, because we really, really want to try our best to try and help out our community. So right now, we don't have a number that we can give right now, but please continue to report what you have.
The commissioners approved the declaration unanimously. If you live in Monroe County and suffered damages from flooding, please call 211 or visit in211.org to report those damages. Bloomington Utilities employees gave a report on the June 18th floods to the Bloomington Utilities Service Board at its June 22nd meeting. Board member Jean Kapler asked about previous work done to increase the size of the culvert under downtown Bloomington. Assistant Director of Engineering Brad Schroeder acknowledged that work had been done, but that parts of the culvert were still undersized.
Yeah, the first big dig was the first set of increasing the size of the main culvert, the Hidden River, which goes through Dunn Meadow and then into Clear Creek. And that did increase that capacity, but there's still sections downstream that are undersized. And that's actually what the current project is in the process of addressing. So we're trying to increase the size of that culvert. And really what Kirkwood and those areas flow into is that size section of culvert that's still a bit undersized. So
Schroeder added that the culvert was only part of the problem. He said it would be difficult to design for such a large rainfall.
The intensity and duration of this storm was so great that really we couldn't practically design to this storm level. It was just too much. So to absolutely prevent flooding in a storm like this would be extremely difficult and cost prohibitive and unpractical. So
the next Utilities Service Board meeting is July 6th. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying. I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me. But with Girls Inc. in my corner, there for me every day, believing in me,
showing me what's possible,
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body. To say I can rather than I can't.
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader. To finish school.
To own my future.
To break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
With you in my corner. With you in my corner, I will not be another statistic. I will fight for myself.
For my future.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc. Inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
Welcome back to Cats Week. The Monroe County Council and Board of Commissioners had a joint meeting to discuss the results of a comprehensive criminal justice report commissioned in 2019. At the June 23rd meeting, Principal of Inclusivity Consulting, Eve Hill, talked about overcrowding in Monroe County's jail. She explained that people with mental illnesses and people arrested for substance abuse make up a majority of the incarcerated population.
Staff at the current jail estimate that a huge number of jail inmates have some form of mental illness. In addition, arrests of people for substance use disorder related crimes such as DWI and possession account for a hugely significant number of jail days annually. And all those arrests and detentions contribute to overcrowding, taxing of available resources, and burdens on jail staff and liability issues, as well as the collateral consequences for individuals, families, and Monroe County communities.
Hill said the report made 20 recommendations, including the establishment of an overdose response team and a focus on more permanent supportive housing. Commissioner Lee Jones showed concern that the current jail does not have the space to incorporate changes to in-jail practices. Hill focused on the importance of keeping people out of jail and keeping people from returning to jail.
The most urgent things you're going to need to do, even if you're considering a new jail, is to deal with what keeps people from going in and what keeps people from returning to the jail. So the pre and post is important, but you cannot overlook the things that the jail itself can do. And even without a new jail, even without a renovation, there are things currently that the jail can do to support both those, and that the sheriff's office and BPD and IUPD, for example, can do, and that you can pressure them to do to assist in the pre-jail interventions and the post-jail interventions.
Judge Mary Deekoff spoke on behalf of the Board of Judges. She said the judiciary branch is willing to work with county government towards making these recommendations a reality.
I'm going to go on record as saying that the relationship that the judiciary has with the other two branches in county government has always been, in my opinion, open. It's been productive. It's been positive. It's been supportive. And I see us going forward with the goal of having this common goal and continuing to work together.
The commissioners and council members will meet again to discuss the report on July 7th. The Bloomington Environmental Commission discussed parking at its June 24th meeting. Commissioner Andrew Gunther talked about eliminating the requirement that new buildings in Bloomington have a minimum amount of parking spaces. He said the requirement to build parking spaces goes against Bloomington's goal to become more pedestrian-friendly.
How can we continue to encourage not using a car in Bloomington while simultaneously mandating parking spots for them in developments that may not need them? Bloomington has stated multiple times throughout their citywide plans that they want to be a pedestrian-friendly city like the one pictured here. However, we need to get away from mandating so many parking spaces if we want this to be a reality in Bloomington. We must avoid the mistakes of the past. Minimum parking requirements are antithetical to so much of what our city's comprehensive plan and other citywide reports, objectives, and goals state.
City Planner Ben Shroff suggested the commission conduct a study on how much parking is left empty. He said the data will help convince council members to support the ordinance.
I think it would be useful to actually find out, to do like a study or something to find out exactly how many spaces aren't being used. I think that would be very convincing, or more convincing to the council if you actually have that data in front of you.
Commissioner Donald Eggert asked how this change would affect public transportation. Gunther said he was conducting a study on the effects of eliminating minimum parking on Champaign, Illinois, to get a better idea of how it might affect Bloomington. The next scheduled meeting of the Environmental Commission is July 15th. The Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals discussed allowing additional parking spaces during its June 24th meeting. Development Services Manager Jackie Scanlon presented a request by the future Starbucks on South Liberty Drive to build 22 additional parking spaces. She said the variance easily meets two of the criteria for recommendation, but that it is unclear if additional parking will help alleviate practical issues on the property.
We do think, that there are characteristics of this site that it will be likely that we will be able to write a positive finding for number 3. But we would feel more comfortable looking at numbers for comparable Starbuckses to be able to say that they have, in fact, demonstrated that there are practical difficulties here in order to be able to operate the way that this store is intended to operate.
Board member Joe Throckmorton opposed the allowance. He pointed out that drive-through backup will prevent people from getting in and out of parking spaces.
The space between the parking, the slant parking as you come in, it's a 12-foot wide entrance there to the south. And then when you come in, if they have a backup, cars aren't going to be able to use parking spaces as they're designed, which is to come in and leave. They can't park and then they can't leave. There's really just not enough space there. And it's not from specifically the design, but it's going to be how people use it.
Board member Flavia Burrell acknowledged that 33 total spaces might be too many spaces, but that the board was voting on whether the design could have more parking, not the design itself. She said that Starbucks needs parking spaces to operate.
I do believe that in order for the Starbucks to work, it will need parking. There is parking across the street, but Starbucks does not own that parking. And I deal with real estate, and sometimes neighbors do not want to help neighbors. So we need to look at the property the site that we have in front of us, and then the purview and the questions that we've been asked tonight. And the question is, do they need more parking spaces? I believe they do. Is it 33? I don't know what the number is. 11? I think it's not enough.
Board members voted 4-0 to continue the variance at its July 22nd meeting. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.